my happy readers. It's Shed Time Stories with Issy. Are you ready to share a new story? Well, I have chosen a rather fishy story. The title of the book is Peter the Picky Polar Bear. If you have this book at home, you can read along with me. The author, the person who has written this story, is Kieshia Chun. And the illustrator, the person who has drawn all the pictures, is Watkins. Now, this story is about Peter the polar bear. He says he doesn't like fish, but he's never tried it. Shall we read and see if he changes his mind? Peter the Picky Polar Bear. Peter was a polar bear. He looked like all the other polar bears. He smelled like all the other polar bears, but he didn't act like all the other polar bears. Peter was picky. He didn't like fish. What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish? A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind. Peter's mummy had tried to get him to eat his fish. Here's your fish, Peter. Eat it all up. Otherwise, you'll have no energy to play, she'd tell him. I don't like fish, he replied. What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish? Peter's mummy asked. A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind, he answered. Peter's daddy had tried to get him to eat his fish. Eat your fish, Peter. It'll make you big and strong. I don't like fish, he replied. What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish? Peter's daddy asked. A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind, he answered. The dinner lady at school, Mrs. Polar Bear, had tried to get Peter to eat his fish. Eat your fish, Peter. It'll help you to concentrate, she'd tell him. I don't like fish, he replied. What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish? Mrs. Polar Bear asked. A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind, he answered. Peter was starting to get hungry. It had been a whole day and he'd not eaten a single thing. He dragged his giant-sized, heavy paws through the deep white snow and then, feeling rather sorry for himself, he came across his friend, Percy the penguin. What's wrong, Peter? Asked Percy inquisitively. I'm so hungry, Peter complained. I haven't eaten a thing all day. Why didn't you eat your fish? Percy asked. I don't like fish, he replied. What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish? Percy exclaimed. A Peter kind of polar bear, that's what kind, Peter answered. But have you ever even tried it? Percy asked. Well, no, but I've seen it and I've already decided that I don't like it, Peter told him, rather sure of his answer. How do you know if you haven't tried it? Percy cried curiously. Peter paused and thought about it for a second or two. He really hadn't ever tried fish, So how would he know if he didn't try it? It couldn't hurt to try a teeny tiny little piece of fish, could it? OK, Peter agreed. I'll try it. Hesitantly, Peter held the fresh fish up to his face. First, he smelt it. Then he prodded it. Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, opened his big polar bear mouth, and took a tiny bite. After a few chews, Peter slowly opened his eyes and broke into a smile. "I like it!" he exclaimed, eating the rest of the fish so fast that he barely had time to chew it before swallowing. Mummy Bear, Daddy Bear, Mrs. Polar Bear and Percy were all so pleased that they jumped for joy. From that day on, Peter the Polar Bear never again said that he didn't like something until he tried it first. Peter was now most definitely the kind of polar bear who liked fish. Oh, what a great story that was! Peter had made up his mind, hadn't he, that he didn't like fish. But he'd never even tried it. I like the way that with his friend Percy, he did try just that teeny tiny bite, and he realised he liked it after all. I wonder, have you ever said that you don't like something, but you've never tried it? Maybe next time, have a little bite and see, because we don't know if we don't like something unless we try it first. Then we can make up our mind. Now, in the back of this story as well, there is a little game for you to play. And there are some questions that will help you think about the story and what you've read and the characters that you've met. I hope you've enjoyed today's Shed Time story. And if you want to, you can like, share, follow and subscribe to Shed Time Stories. And you will be ready for the next book for us to share together. Bye-bye.